Welcome to the Monday, November 13th Education Committee and Supplementary Regular Board Meeting of the Board of School Directors. I will now turn the meeting over to Mr. Copeland.
Thank you, Dr. Van Lynch. Welcome, everybody. This is the Education Committee, and we've got two presentations this evening. The first one is on our strategic plan, Redefining School Success. Dr. Everslage, Mr. Hughes.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Copeland. Pleased to be here this evening with my colleague, Mr. Hughes, to discuss the strategic plan and provide an update on our pathway of redefining success. Mr. Hughes is not only the principal of Lower Merion High School, but he also serves as our pathway leader for the strategic plan for the pathway of redefining success. Some language in our redefining success pathway includes: we will transform how we define, measure, and report student achievement with a focus on each student's individualized growth and mastery in areas that extend beyond traditional academic indicators. With that said, we have, through our work to the strategic plan, questioned some of our internal practices. And what has driven much of these questions is a quote from Thomas Gusky. We've done a lot of work with Dr. Gusky. He joined Lower Merion School District a few years ago with providing a keynote speaker and did some work with our secondary teams and our staff around assessment. Dr. Gusky is a professor of educational psychology at the University of Kentucky. He's written over 21 books and authored over 250 articles on grading and student assessment. Is considered an expert in the field. And one of my educational heroes, which you're allowed to have if you serve this role. And one of his guiding question that he poses to schools is, as educators, is our purpose to develop talent or select talent? And through that, some questions have been raised about some of our practices that are common practices amongst the school districts across the country that have raised some questions around that area specifically. So the Redefining Success Pathway has chosen to explore two policies, Policy 213 and Policy 133, that are around the grading of student progress. And some questions that have arisen from these policies that are aligned to what Dr. Gusky shared have questions about how we are currently, our current practices of grade weighting, asking the question, should honors courses be weighted more heavily than college prep level courses in a student's GPA? Questions around GPA. Should all classes be included in a student's GPA calculation? Class rank, is it still necessary to rank our students? And the practice of naming a valedictorian and salutatorian, and whether that practice is outdated. It should be noted that we are not here this evening to offer any recommendations for change right now. We're in the midst of exploring. We wanted to provide the board and the committee with an update on where we are with those explorations, with the hopes that we intend to revisit this in May with some formal recommendations around each of these. Mr. Hughes, who has been with the district for a long time and part of the grading policy changes over the years, and our local historian in this matter, has chosen to kind of lead this endeavor, and he's going to take us through some of the current policies and practices and some of the work they've done to explore.
Who's your educational hero, Mr. Hughes?
Dr. Everslage and you, Mr. Copeland.
Wrong answer.
That was the wrong answer.
First off, as always, everybody, happy Monday to all of you, and thank you for coming. Before I start, I just wanted to two things. First, I would like to thank Mr. Copeland for...
It's too late.
Well, I'll throw it in there anyhow. Actually, for helping, continuing to allow us to say, let's look at these different components of education or pedagogical reflections, as we would say, and to kind of say, like, are we still in the current realm of education, still doing the right things and still looking at the right procedures and the right policies and the right practices. So he's allowed us a lot to talk to so many different schools, and we've had some schools visit us, actually over about 25 in the last 3 years, to talk about some of the educational practices and things we're doing with the scheduling, and a lot of discussions on grading have come out of that. I also like to thank Dr. Avazog for working with me so closely and doing a lot of the research for this and having some really in-depth discussions on what things could look like or would look like. So let me give you a little bit of background. First off, I am not a, PhD on grading. So I have had the pleasure, or maybe not the pleasure, of sitting on several committees since pre-2000 to talk about grading and to kind of see the historical changes that we have had. If there was one grading system out there, then we would all be using it, and I would have written a book and be hanging out with Charlotte Danielson and Marzano and all them. So there is nothing that is, set in stone of what we should do. Some historical background. We started re-looking at several of our grading practices in 2000. At that time, we were working under what we called a trend system. It was a system where it was spelled out in A and A and A and A to equal an A. It was each quarter was broken down, and that's how we used to define our gradings, our quarter and final grades for students. Roughly around 2000, we restructured, set a committee together for over a year and a half, and we then switched from a trend system into a QPA percentage system based on quality points of an average before we went to a percentage system. About 5 years later, we reconvened the committee and looked at that system again, and by about 2009, we moved into our percentage system that we currently have with 20% for quarters, 9% for a midterm, and 11% for a final. There were, at that time, we kept the scale, which is 92. That was 92 to 100. We added a plus system, no minus system, and we left it that we would reconvene in a couple years to take a look at that. So that led me to about 2015 or 2016 when we did reconvene, and the last change that we asked to be made was to open up the scale from a 90 to 100, add the minus system to be, at that time we did research of over 50 other school districts, to be very comparable to districts out there, and that was the last change. Since that time, there's other components of this of 213 that we've been looking at. So since this exploration, there's two policies. There's 213, which is the grading policy. There's also 133, which deals within the class rank. And what have we done since that time period? First off, we've looked at our current policies and our current practice. Second, we've researched and looked at over 30 schools, private, public, in-state and out-of-state, to see what are changes that are occurring within those school districts and have they made any changes towards this. We also took a look at some research out there. There's some studies that have been done in terms of literature reviews on weighted grade weighting on GPA, on class rank, and on valedictorian, salutatorian. And then we discussed, we had some parent feedback groups last fall and a couple student feedback groups. Right now is what I'm updating you on, and then we'll make some recommendations in the spring of this year on areas that maybe we think we should relook at or make some changes at that time period. So I'm going to go through each one, started with grade weighting, and I'll give you those components for each one, and then I'll share with you what we're recommending at this time. Current scale, this is our current policy right now. We do weight courses, honors, AP, and IB on a 5-point scale, college prep courses on a 4-point scale, and that's what it looks like with our current A+, A- system. All right. What's some of the other schools within the area doing in terms of weighting grades or not weighting them? So we took a look at 20 local public high schools. 15 of those schools are still having grade weighting, 5 are not. We looked at 6 independent and private schools, from Episcopal to Shipley to Haverford and those other schools around us. 5 schools, yes, 1 no longer has weight grading. We took a look at what we considered 4 out-of-state public schools that we considered to be similar to Lower Merion School District. 1 still has weighted grading and 3 do not. Just some pull out information that we had from that. 10 of the school districts had a variety of scales. There was no one set scale. They were from 4-point scales to actually the highest was a 6.5, I believe we looked at. 2 school districts actually do both. They provide a weighted grade and a non-weighted GPA grade. 2 school districts that had no weighting, their reasoning behind it was their courses on the transcript are listed as honors and college prep on the transcript, and that shows the identification of the course, and there was no need for grade weighting. What did we took a look and asked, we actually didn't take a look, we actually called some universities and colleges, and we worked with Rich Marta to see what are some universities and colleges saying on this. Most admissions officers that we had talked to in the last year, there is no, believe it or not, there's no definitive answer. The colleges and universities, how they calculate GPA is a mystery, and they each have their own format for doing so. That seems to, you are not allowed to know that format. They just make it clear, everybody we talk to, as long as your information is clear to them on your school profile and your grading scale, that's all that they are requiring and asking. We took a look at just some small studies that have been done recently that Thomas Gusky had put together in a book called On Your Mark. Some of the studies talked about at that time, most admissions officers expressed serious skepticism. A lot of the research just talks about the actual being accurate in terms of making common recommendations based on such things as class rank and weighted grading. A huge variation in ranking procedures, grade weighting. Just think of alone of the 501 some school districts in the state of Pennsylvania all doing it completely different at that fact. There were some studies, this one is 89% of the colleges use grades to compare applicants, but most do not recalculate grades based on the rigor of the content of the course. We took a look, this was out recently, it's over 200 schools were surveyed on the percentage of what you look at for the importance factors in admissions decisions for colleges. And if you notice on the top 2 parts of these, the considerable importance is reflected in grades and what they say college prep courses. Now that just means that could be honors, AP, or college prep in our level. It's courses that could prepare you for college. That has those 60 or 77% importance, and grades, the grades that you get in all courses. Those were the 2 highest levels in their factoring for colleges, and this was a survey done and completed in 2016. The parent focus groups, we met twice last fall. Just asked them, as you sit up there, here's our current policy. I sort of did the same presentation and asked for feedback. Should honors grades be weighted more heavily? The discussions, we talked each of these 4 things that I'm going to go over tonight. We talked about each of these in these 2 meetings. Just to give you some feedback, 6 of 8 of the parents that we had spoken with said keep the current policy. There is a liking for the distinction of taking honors and college prep courses. 2 of the 8 were that since that information is already on a transcript, do you really need it? All of the parents believe that it does impact the courses a student will take, the weighted system, and all agreed on 2 other things, that they would like to see more research on having no honors or college prep classes, and they would like to see more research from colleges and universities. The student group is somewhat similar to the parent group. The students, we met twice, last October and November. 10 of the 12 said, please keep the current policy. We like the distinction. 2 of the 12 agreed that since honors and college prep are on your transcript, as long as the colleges or somebody sees that, then why do we need it? 12 of 12, same for the last 2. They both agreed of the students that they would like to see more research about both of these, especially for the colleges. At this time, we are going to look at doing a survey. This is both to Harriton and Lower Merion students from both grades 11th and 12th to survey them about grade weighting and their input. We're also going to put together a survey for parents at both high schools for that time, and we'll come back with a recommendation based on some of this information, whether we should just keep the current policy or look for changes in that. So how about GPA? This is our current policy in GPA, and I won't read through it, but it does base off of that your 5 major courses and the electives under those courses do count your GPA. Things like summer school programs and Saturday courses all do. But there are courses in major subject areas like art and music in particular, and elective courses that fall in those that are not included in your GPA. There are school districts out there, which I'll show you, that strongly believe you should have the distinction of not having things count, because that entices students to take those courses without having to worry about the GPA. Then there's others that see the opposite way, to say that the kids that are specializing in some of those fields feel like it should count towards their GPA because that's what they like and that's their interest. Of the 20 local public high schools, 11 of all the courses, 11 say yes, everything counts, 9 say no. Of the 6 independent, 4 yes, 1 no. One independent school no longer puts GPA or has it on a transcript. They go purely off of narratives. Out of the 4 out-of-state public schools, are all the courses offered and counted? 3, yes, everything that they offer in the course from art, music, all the way are counted, and 1 does not. Just the one school that no longer has a GPA or counts it on a transcript, they can get it, they do keep it, but you have to ask for it in case the college says we definitely need this, but otherwise they are moving completely into more of a standards-based transcript, a narrative based on students. Some of the colleges and universities' early research, most admissions officers that we talked to gave us the same background in terms of what we heard for the grade weighting. Most admissions, they're not a clear definition and answer on how they calculate GPA. They all have, again, their own systems. And, of course, they said just making sure that our profile and our grading scale are on and up to date. And we actually have that stuff not only on our school profile, but we also have that on our transcript. What's some research out there? I'm not going to read everything to you, but weighted grading serves primarily a means to differentiate. All right, it's also a mechanism for class rank in the GPA, and consider that. This is just research from what scales out there and how they are not sometimes an illusion of the precision of exactly what a kid or what a student knows and is able to do. When we look at that chart that I showed you in the last slide, again, I go back to grades in college prep courses and grades in all courses considered to be the most important thing of what they look at. Focus our feedback groups from the parents, 7 of 8 recommended that all courses should count in the GPA. 1 of 8, not all courses, only major courses. 8 out of 8, both parents, of the 8 parents, both said similar things to the end. They believe that it does impact a course that does now count. It does impact what a student will take, and 8 of 8 would like more research. Students that we talked with and got feedback from, sort of similar. 9 out of 12 of the students thought all of their courses should count in GPA. 3 out of 12 thought not, only the major courses. 12 out of 12 believe that it does impact what a student takes, and 12 of the 12 would like some more research in terms of what an impact of colleges and universities. So our recommendation at this point is we'd like to get some feedback. One area we've not talked to is the special area teachers of elective courses that courses do not count in their GPA. We'd like to get some feedback from those teachers. And a part of the survey that we would use for grade weighting would include questions about GPA, and we would do the survey again to get information from both high schools, and recommendation again would be made in May. So class rank. Currently, we can calculate through PowerSchool class rank. We do not record class rank on our transcript. If any institution is asking for this from our counseling department, only a request in writing, we will give them that information as long as the student's included and knows that we're doing that. So class rank is reported, it is weighted, and includes only the major academic subject courses completed in grades 9 through 11. So again, it's not on student transcripts, but we can pull it up, we can keep it through our system, all right? That quote I have on on the previous slide, the bottom, that is what's on our high school profile where the arrow is. That is actually stated on our high school profile for both high schools, all right? What are schools doing? Local schools, the 20 local schools, does your school calculate, distribute, class rank? 6 still do, 14 no longer do. Of the independent private schools, do they still calculate, distribute? None of them do. Right? Of the 4 out of state, none of them no longer do. Just some highlights of that. 3 of those 6 school districts claim that they are in the process of doing away with the class rank in a year or so on their transcripts. 1 school district does not rank All right, one school district, ranks both weighted and non-weighted class rank, and it's still reported. All right. Research out there, class rank, or before we do research, what are the colleges and universities? Class ranks seem to be of diminishing importance, and I'll show you that by that chart, it's like less than 9% consider it to be important for that. Some of the research, mostly, this was from, again, from some of the work that Gusky has done. Evidence indicates that class rank may actually accomplish quite the opposite and diminish student motivation when they find out where they are ranked. Only 19% of colleges and universities now give class rank considerable importance, and 2016 now lists considerable importance of class rank 9.2%, and that's where it is. So on that recent 200 and some college survey, that is where class rank is listed. And as you can see, it is more towards the not important or limited on importance. What's the parent feedback group say? 8 of the 8 parent groups, and this will be similar as you'll see for the students, think just keep the current structure. It's not on transcripts. They would not like it to be on transcript, and only distribute it when needed and depending on the university that still or college that still requires it. And they would like, again, to see more research of that. Students, same thing. Keep the current structure. Please don't change it. Was the students' part is only if needed and distribute at that time. Our consideration from our exploration group is there's no further exploration on the matter of this as actually planned, no more surveys or anything at this point. Current recommendation is to continue our current practice under the policy and de-emphasize class rank whenever possible and only report it when requested by a post-secondary institution. So we'll make a formal recommendation of that later on in May when we make the recommendations. The last area we explored over the last year is we looked at valedictorian and salutatorian. Practice, 50 plus years old in Lower Merion School District. Valedictorian and salutatorian have always been asked to speak at graduation. This is our current system that we gather information at the end of the third quarter for senior students that are selected for the valedictorian and salutatorian. There is a process that we follow in case there's a tie in terms of grades and GPA. Then we select the individual or individuals depending if there's a tie, and there has been in the past. What are current schools doing? Of the local 20 schools, does your school still record a valedictorian and do they speak? Only 7 still do this, 13 no longer do. Of the independent schools, 2 still record a valedictorian and salutatorian. They don't speak, but they still are recorded, 4 no longer do. And of the out-of-state schools, not one of them still has the valedictorian and salutatorian. They all are in the process of what they call an academic speaker instead of a valedictorian and salutatorian. Some highlights: 15 school districts have instituted this academic speaker at graduation. Follows a similar process as what Lower Merion has, which we call a student speaker. They go through a committee search, and that might be a recommendation we would look at. That was something the students were interested in when we were talking about that. For research from colleges, what do we find? Valedictorian, salutatorian no longer a major factor in the college admissions process. Matter of fact, when most valedictorians and salutatorians are already selected, their college admissions process is already over. They're usually accepted to the college or the university. And when you look at this most recent 2016 survey, valedictorian is not even listed as a factor of importance anymore. Some research: valedictorian and salutatorian. There is nothing wrong with recognizing excellence, and this talks a little bit about the often results in the aggressive and sometimes bitter competition. Talk about stress that it does create on students. I recently said in my last 10 years or 9 years, whatever, as principal, about 6 of those or 7 of those years when I've told somebody that they've become the valedictorian, salutatorian, most of them do not want me to tell anybody else, and I've had to talk kids into speaking at graduation because they're kind of like a little bit embarrassed that they don't want that role, and they would not like to speak. Some of Gusky's research of the valedictorian really has nothing to do with achievement. It comes from the Latin, which means the person that should say farewell at the graduation address and the commencement ceremony. What did the parent feedback group? 2 out of the 8 said keep the current structure of the selection of speaking at graduation at least. 6 out of the 8 said remove the designation and create something different. They love the idea of an academic speaker that we could slowly institute. Out of the students, only 1 out of 12 said keep the current structure. The rest, 11 out of 12, said please remove the designation. They also liked. We would recommend possibly in the future is maybe to take a look at some other ways of, emphasizing excellence and maybe something at the college university level of the summa magna cum laude designation. We'd also look at the idea of maybe doing an academic speaker if we were looking at that, of a process based on some of our academic grades and identifying it through a committee. So we'll take a look at that a little bit further and for recognition and a formal process to maybe identify some student speakers. To show you, this is our current transcript. This is a Harriton transcript. It is similar to Lower Merion. The only difference is the title up top. If you could take a look up on that transcript, you see that GPA is weighted. We do put information on, besides our school profile, we also put information directly on the transcript of where a student's GPA is. We also put down there of the levels that we describe, advanced placement, IB, honors, college prep courses. Right? All courses are also identified and designated in terms of honors and college prep and AP or IB. The only thing we do not, again, put on there is we do not put class rank on there. To just kind of summarize, what are we going to be looking at over the next couple of months to make some recommendations at a point? For grade weighting, we're going to put, for grade weighting a GPA, we're going to reconvene some feedback groups. We're also going to do surveys for both 11th and 12th grade students, both Harriton and Lower Merion, and to get some results, probably start that anywhere from January to February, March of 2018. For class rank, right now we are current recommendation is to just continue the current practice, made no changes to that policy. And valedictorian, salutatorian, we're going to look at some exploration in terms of what are some alternative ways to recognize excellence for that, with maybe possible some other recommendations or other designations. Recommendations will be made in May of 2018 for all of this. And that is where we are right now in terms of this exploration that we started about 2 years ago. All right.
Thank you, Mr. Hughes, for the presentation. I want to open it up for questions. And thank you for round 2 of the presentation. We had a lively dialogue at Curriculum Committee of the Board. So I'll start to my left. Any questions? Mr. Fetterman?
Thanks for that presentation. Just one question I was thinking about in terms of whether courses would count in the GPA or not. And I assume that was referring to electives or something like that, where some where currently they're not being included in the GPA, electives?
Not all electives. There are electives included. For example, if an elective's under a major course, like an English elective or social studies elective, those are included.
But like a photography or?
Depends on what they come under, but no.
I see. Okay.
No.
And
It's
my
an
other
art course, music course.
Right.
So, and that's where you see the differences. Students are saying, like, that's my field, that's what I really love.
Right.
Like, that should count towards.
Right. And on the other hand, some kids might say,
That's the other argument,
that,
yes.
I want to take it for fun. I don't want to feel the pressure of the grade.
Correct.
And on that line, have you considered exploring like a pass-fail option in any classes or electives or something like that?
We have a pass-fail.
Do we have
You can take
pass-fail?
courses, You can audit and or take courses pass-fail.
All right.
Yes.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hi.
I wasn't at the curriculum committee meeting, but this was a lot of great information, and I like that the students and the parents were also solicited, and you gave us their feedback. Just one, and just based on my own experience here at LM, I think I totally relate, not that this was an option for me, but the valedictorian, salutatorian, that's typically a knot of highly competitive kids who are, and it's very stressful in those times anyway, applying to college and having everyone over-focused on class rank is probably not the healthy whole child atmosphere we all care about. But just one idea I had, and maybe you or others have already thought of this, it would be interesting to ask maybe the last 5 years of valedictorians, salutatorians, if they have ideas for how they would have preferred to, or other ways they could have been recognized.
Sure.
Especially I relate to the fact that some of them maybe either were embarrassed that they were ranked so high to their peers, or didn't want to speak at graduation. And it'd be nice, as you said, to find ways for the students. I love how at LM the students give a award to one of their teachers, and to make it more, I don't know, a broader category.
Agreed.
not a popularity contest, but there's certainly students who are putting a lot of effort into some of the volunteer opportunities or the culture of the school who, that I think that more represents what LM is inherited or about than just the rank. So anyway, all really interesting and just a small suggestion.
Sure.
Thanks.
Other questions? Okay, you good? Anybody on my right? Most of us were at curriculum. Mr. Driscoll?
Thank you for this, and I apologize, I don't know the answer to this, but what's the breakdown of like what your final exam is 10% of your final grade versus homework done throughout the year versus maybe doing a project that kind of leads into what your final, well, like if your final exam at the end of the year is 100% of your GPA for that, sorry, your grade for that class.
It's 11%.
11%. So
Right.
how is that, are we looking at that as a fair balance or changing that percentage to saying if you do a project-based something without the final, you can still get a good grade, but you're working at it all year round rather than that 2-hour exam at the end of the year where this is it for 11% of your grade?
I mean, I can't answer specifically. I could just say that is a big discussion that we're having. The breaking down the percentages by quarters, also looking at, there are prototypes out there of quarterless grading, meaning that you continue to see how you develop through the year that you go back and do new stuff. So I can't say there's an answer to that yet, but I can say that's actually a big part of the discussions going on with grading.
Dr. O'Leary?
Yeah, I guess two things. One, maybe you could talk a little bit about the awards ceremony that might address what Lori was talking about, recognizing achievement, not necessarily through valedictorian. And then the second thing is on page 13 of your presentation. You listed the factors that colleges attribute to their decisions. Do you know if that's sort of standard across colleges, or does some colleges look at, like maybe the more competitive colleges care more about one factor, maybe scholarships care more about another factor? Do you have any feel for that?
I don't, to answer that part of the question, I don't have that broken down. No, I wouldn't, like what, did Harvard or say this is what's more important out of that? No, I mean, it wasn't listed of what colleges took the survey, which is kind of universal.
There are some schools, there are some scholarships that require us to report, for instance, class rank,
Yes,
and the service academies will require us to
100%.
report class
yes.
rank.
To answer the other question, yeah, both high schools have an academic and awards ceremony, or sometimes together with an athletic award ceremony, but they both have academic award ceremonies the day before or a couple days before graduation. They identify not only overall academic achievement, but they're also broken down by subject area and awarded,
That's what's listed in the program.
Correct.
Got it.
And then there's
Okay.
also designations that you could get if you go
Right.
above and beyond so many credits for the courses, distinguished and scholars, diplomas. So there is other ways we've been recognizing.
Question regarding how we calculate transfer student GPAs who are maybe coming in at 10th or 11th grade or coming into the IB program, for example. How do we reconcile how one school might have calculated their GPA with what their final GPA is once they would graduate from one of our high schools?
Great question. It's not so easy. If it is an easy switch, we just bring in what they had if it's a similar system to ours. If not, we also provide the university that the student came in at this particular level. This is what they had at the other school that they came from, and this is what we would equate it to. So we try to be as transparent as we possibly can for the application process for the student. It's a lot easier, of course, is when if they come in at the end of like a freshman year. But as you get up 9th and 10th, and don't forget too, we have students who maybe take a semester off and or a year off and they go and travel, or they attend a program abroad. And then we try to make sure that that's, and we specify this would be equal to, we try to be as clear as we can on the transcript so that you're getting a full picture of the student.
So then would the student need to submit transcripts for each school, or would it be?
No, we'll take whatever their former school was, we'll take that information, we put it on our transcript.
Okay, so it'll be on one final transcript, great.
So it's easier that it's one page that it can be read, so they're not handing in several things or, So we try to tell their story, but we put it on our transcript.
Great. Any additional questions? Please, Ms. Driscoll.
Obviously, 95% of our students do go on to college, or some high 90s, but not all do. So so much of this is focused on college. What do we say to those who college isn't for me? What does their transcript say for them as they go out into the non-college world? Do we have any?
In terms of, the transcripts would look the same. It's still, here's the academic courses that you achieved while you were at Lower Merion High School or Harriton High School. So.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Sure. Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.
All right. Mr. Copeland?
Next presentation will be on, we opened up a number of online courses through Montgomery Virtual Program, and we thought we'd give an opportunity for the board and public to see an overview of where we were in our first foray.
Thank you again. We presented last spring about entering into an agreement with the Montgomery County Intermediate Unit with a program called the Montgomery Virtual Program to explore some online options for students in the summer. This was our first summer of doing so, and the purpose of tonight's presentation is just to give the board and the community an update on how that went. We worked with the IU. The MCIU is a Montgomery County Intermediate Unit, is located in Norristown, Pennsylvania, and 22 public school districts share services through the IU. So we work with the IU very closely in a number of different programs. One of their offerings is the Montgomery Virtual Program that several districts in the county use as the platform for online courses. So the reason that we were exploring MVP, as it's called, or the Montgomery Virtual Program, is to provide some increased options for students and some greater flexibility for students for summer options. We obviously wanted to maintain a high standard for the courses that we expect students to take, but some students, based on the responsibilities they had over the summer, were not able to enroll in courses that they would have liked to, and in some cases we didn't have the enrollment necessary in a traditional face-to-face course that would permit us to offer a course. So this provides some greater options for students, and we were pleased with our relationship with MVP as an online platform. Looking at our enrollments in summer school, just over the last 5 summers, now obviously keep in mind that last summer was the first summer for MVP enrollment, but if you look at the top line of traditional face-to-face enrollment, we have seen the number of students that are taking traditional face-to-face courses in the summer school, we're talking secondary summer school, so we're talking high school students, has declined over the years. In fact, in the mid-2000s, it was almost double that, around 400 students that were taking. So a variety of reasons for that we may guess, but the reality is that the culture here has been students taking classes in the summer for advancement purposes. Very few have taken classes for recovery purposes. But you can see that 230 students enrolled for the MVP in the summer had a total student enrollment up to 336 students that participated last summer in summer school. So looking at the success of those students, we had 230 students, as mentioned, that participated in the MVP. Those students took 237 course enrollments. That means that 7 students took 2 courses. That is not an option if you take the traditional face-to-face, so the option for students to take 2 courses, while some may say not advisable due to the time commitment, it is an option for students, and 7 students did take advantage of that. Of those 237 enrollments, 226 were for advancement. 11 students took courses for credit recovery. Those 11 students that were enrolled in credit recovery classes would not have had a face-to-face option for credit recovery. So this was an option for those 11 students. The reason that's so important is for a student that was unsuccessful in a course and they don't have a summer option to take that course and make it up, are forced to double up their following year. So for example, if a ninth grade student is unsuccessful in ninth grade English and we don't have a summer school option, their 10th grade year includes both 10th grade English and ninth grade English on the schedule, which has proven to be very challenging for students that had not been successful the first time. So this is one option that allows students some flexibility in taking care of that credit recovery in the summer. Regarding the success of those students, 217 of the 226 students passed the course with a 96% pass rate, and 6 of the 11 students in the credit recovery passed the course with a 55% pass rate. We obviously would like that number to be higher, 55% pass rate. We have some suggestions on how to increase that I'll be mentioning at the end of the presentation. This was the breakdown of the participation in the MVP courses by course. You can see that the highest enrollment was in for students in health. So these were mostly rising 10th grade students. 182 students participated in the online health class. Of those 182, 176 of them were successful at a 97% rate. The numbers are lower at the bottom of the slide if you look at the credit recovery numbers. But again, I just would want to emphasize that those courses, if you look at the English 1, English 2, would not have been an option for the students in the traditional format. So this does increase the level, the optionality for students. We asked students who participated in MVP this summer to offer us some feedback. We surveyed every student. We had 77 students that gave us survey responses. We had a feedback that we provided in a number of different areas that I'll just share with you briefly as an overview. We asked students about the registration process and was the process for registering for MVP clear and easy to follow. 85.7% of the students indicated that yes, it was easy to follow. There's online assistance for students that are enrolled in MVP. They have access to teachers via online at a variety of hours, not just the set hours of the day. So was the MVP assistance helpful and timely? Of the respondents, 65.7% said yes, it was timely and helpful. 30% said they did not seek out the MVP assistance in any way. Was the course content clear and easy to understand? 82.9% said that yes, it was clear and easy to understand. 14.3% said the course content was somewhat clear and easy to understand. The questions about the course pace appropriate for the topic. 71.4% said yes, they thought the course pace was appropriate. 15.7% said no. And 12.6% said it was somewhat appropriate. The summary of the feedback that we had, both anecdotally and through the survey, was that the time commitment necessary to complete the course was greater than they expected. So generally speaking, 182 students took health. I'm not sure if they all realized it was 116 hours of online time. That's an extensive amount of time, and those that were engaged in it you have to, of course, pace yourself through the summer to get through there successfully. Were the course format and materials easy to navigate? 80% said yes. 12.9% said that they were somewhat easy to navigate. And generally speaking, we asked them what their overall satisfaction with the course was, and 22.9% were 5, completely satisfied. 42.9% had 4, which were mostly satisfied. As is the case, and most times we ask students about how their satisfaction with the course, not everyone was fully satisfied. While we would aspire for that to be the case, it generally is not. And we asked students if they would recommend the MVP online summer school format, and 82.9% said yes, they would recommend it. 17.1% said no. And the reality is, as we know, is online learning is not for everyone. It's an option for some, and it's a great option for some, and others it's not their best, their preferred learning style or the preferred delivery of content. And so we are not certainly requiring students to take online courses. So in summary, the added flexibility for students was generally welcome and aligned with the strategic plan. The added credit recovery options increased student optionality for students who have struggled. We found the courses to be rigorous and time-consuming. We have the option through the MVP program to decide what percentage of the course content is covered in the course. Most districts have set that number at 80 to 85%. We set the number at 100%. So we set the number at 100% expected for course advancement. And so every standard that would be covered in a course, there was no relief for the students that were taking advancement. So the courses were certainly rigorous and time-consuming. There is a mechanism in place, both through MVP and our resources internally, to monitor student progress. Mrs. Marcuson, who's the summer school principal, was in contact with with parents and students regularly about their progress, and if any concerns about them not meeting expectations for progress, or if there was a lull in their log-on time, we would students would receive frequent communication from Ms. Marcuson. And if you know Ms. Marcuson, you know that it was frequent and vigilant. And I say that with respect. Some recommendations and considerations. We do believe that we should continue the summer options with some minor modifications. We do have some options with some courses to make some modifications. For example, the health course has a 118-hour course. There's a 16.5-hour journaling component to the course. We have some flexibility with whether or not that it would be maintained or not. So we're debating and reviewing that. We'd like to add in-person supports for students that are in credit recovery. We do realize that the credit recovery for students that are working online is very rigorous, and we'd like to offer some in-person supports where students can come to the building if they choose to, not every day, but occasionally throughout the summer, if they wanted to seek some additional in-person support, or we could recommend that intervention to support them. We plan to add that next summer. We will hold a parent-student information session in the spring to make sure that from the lessons that we've learned going through, what advice can we offer for families so that they clearly are aware of the estimated hours that are needed for completion, and we have those quantified estimated hours from the program for each course. And a recommendation was made at the curriculum committee, which we appreciated, was considering lengthening the window of time for students to complete the course. We did follow up and ensure that is a possibility for us to open the online window earlier than the start of summer school. Even if we were to give students another week, it would be an opportunity that the student chose to. They could have some additional time. We did demonstrate some flexibility with some students that were at the end and not quite there, but there are certainly challenges to extending the deadline at the end of the summer later, because it affects course choices and schedules for students for the following year. So that is a summary of our first summer of MVP.
Thank you very much, Dr. Everslog. Open it up for questions, starting my right this time. Dr. O'Leary.
You said the health course was 118 hours online. Is that about what it is in the classroom also?
So we figured this out. During the school year, typical class 3 out of 4 days for 55 minutes meets 123.75 hours. So actually health class only meets 82.5 hours of class time. That doesn't count out of class project time and so forth, but their face time during the year is actually less than the summer login time for health.
Mr. Driscoll?
Thank you for the presentation. This is going to be a difficult question, but do you have a sense of, between the various categories of classes, English, math, chemistry, was there any struggle to say that MCIU gave a great chemistry class, but their English class was maybe thin, or some, because you gave us the raw numbers, and I appreciate that, but across classes to tell them, you need to work on your English class. It was too difficult or something like that.
On the quality of the course?
Yeah.
Yes, thank you for mentioning that. I failed to mention earlier. The courses that we chose to offer were fully vetted by a curriculum team. So there were several other course offerings that we chose not to pursue or offer our students. And we don't want to pretend as if it's a commensurate experience. It's not the identical experience, I should say, but we are confident that the quality of the course was rigorous and the standards were appropriately met. We didn't get that, we didn't ask for that specific feedback from students, though.
Any other questions on this side? Okay, Suba.
Just getting back into what you were talking about in the previous presentation, how are the grades reflected in this on a student's transcript?
The grades are reflected on as being an MVP course listed on the transcript but not calculated in the GPA. And we did specify that in the registration guide for summer school.
So even if it's a core course, it would,
It would not be.
it still would not
Right.
be because it was online? Okay. Good? Okay. Any questions on this side? Mr. Bonaventura and then Ms. Ackman?
Hi, thanks. So just in terms of, I think a lot of kids might take health over the summer so that they open up an entire block for a major. I don't know if that's the case, but even if they take, say, I don't know, algebra or geometry for advancement, how do you work that into the schedule? Because they have to, the class selection is what, in February or March? So do they schedule, assuming they're not taking summer school?
No.
And then what happens if there's a singleton that they wanted to take instead? And do you redo the whole schedule? Can you just talk a little bit about scheduling?
Sure. So we schedule assuming success in the course. So if a student was, for example, rising 10th grader and going to, naturally, most 10th graders would be in chemistry, and we knew that the student was going to be taking chemistry in the summer, we assume that the student's going to be successful in there, let the students take the next course, which is typically physics, and then schedule their electives as needed. So there's a small number of students that we have to make schedule modifications at the end of the summer.
So when they do the course selection, and is it February or March? Is that
It
the right
is,
time?
yeah.
February? They need to know at that time that they're going to be doing summer school?
They don't need to know. We can always make the schedule change. Even if they registered late for summer school, we can still adjust their schedule. So Ms. Marcuson works with the counselors to go through every schedule.
Yeah, they're selecting courses, but they're not producing the actual schedule at that point, right?
Well, they will have an actual schedule.
They will have,
Right.
but you still have significant flexibility
Sure.
between, yeah.
Well, I guess now that the population are growing, it's less of an issue. I'm sorry. It's probably less of an issue at this point, but I imagine there's still a number of singletons and doubletons that make it a little trickier to schedule. And I was just wondering whether that doing summer school, but it sounds like you assume that they're going to be successful, so it's easier to take it away than it is to
It is.
find
Yeah.
its place.
I don't feel students have been disadvantaged in any way.
So the high number is kids who are trying to get a required class out of the way so they can make room for more science or whatever.
Correct. One of the reasons that we think we should be advocating for students to at least have the option to take a course in the summer is that it does increase their optionality the most years. So, Diane, you mentioned students for health. I would venture to say that's even beyond health. Most students, and I'm generalizing, but most students don't take the course that they absolutely love and are passionate about in the summer.
Right.
They want to take that during the year, and they want to take a course in the summer to fulfill a requirement so that they have the option to take electives. There are exceptions, of course.
Is that healthy living requirement at high school, is that kind of a state requirement or?
Health is a state requirement.
Okay,
So
so-
that's the name of the MVP course, our course. That's comparable to our health course.
Okay, so, because I was gonna, so many kids are obviously not passionate about it, so they're trying to get it over with in the summer. You could then question, do we need to actually have them take the time to offer, I mean, do they have to take this course to begin with? But if it's a state mandate, I'm just wondering if that's a sign that actually there's a bigger problem since so many people are opting to just get it over with over the summer.
Well, I don't, Health is the only course, it's offered 1 year. You'll have to take it 1 year. So it's unlike the science courses that you take regularly. So most students in 10th grade know that that course would prohibit them from taking another elective. So
Okay.
I would suggest that that's probably more the reason than the interest in the course, but it is both a graduation requirement and a district requirement.
Is there an option to take this not during the summer, but during the year for other kids?
Online?
Yeah.
We do not offer that, no.
Could it be offered?
Could it be with some exploration and working with the teachers as well on it as a possibility?
Okay.
Yes.
Just because I imagine there's kids who want to do other things with their summer, they can't do this, but also want to free up time in their schedule, perhaps.
We currently do not allow students to take classes during the school year online that are offered in person and they're able to take
Okay,
them.
and I think, I think that's probably a good policy. The other comment I just wanted to make, and I don't think this is part of this, is my son took the bridge program over the summer between 5th grade for advanced math, and it was, like, the online part was really well done with the teacher support. So it helped me understand how these things can work, and I was very impressed with the whole thing. So, but this is just the high school level courses, not the middle school.
Correct.
Okay, cool.
Did you have anybody else? Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, please, Ms. Pollard.
I'm sorry.
I was just thinking, it says here, added credit recovery options increase optionality for students who have struggled. And they're taking this state mandated course, but it's not going to show up on their transcript.
Now, the course will show up. It'll show up
With
and it will be considered it'll fulfill one of your graduation requirements. It just won't be calculated in your GPA.
Okay, I just, if this student is struggling anyway, they will need all the help that they can get, correct?
Correct.
So therefore, they're going to take a course online to help them, but it's not going to be calculated if they do really well. But it's not going to be calculated in their GPA.
So the original recommendation for that, for both advancement and credit recovery, was that we wanted to ensure the quality of the course and the experience would qualify for us that we would want to consider inclusion in the GPA. So right now, there is a built-in incentive for students to take the class traditionally, and I'm talking mostly students for advancement. But you raised a good point about whether it advantages or disadvantages a student who has struggled.
You have anything else, Mr. Copeland?
Nope.
Thank you, Dr. Everslide. Appreciate the presentation.
Sure.
We will now move to audience recognition. If you're interested in providing public comment, please sign in with Ms. LaPera. There is a 3-minute time limit. If you could give us your name and generally where you reside in the district. Thank you.
Max, you can go ahead and start. You can go ahead and start.
Hello, everyone. My name is Max Harris. I'm a 10th grade student at Harrington High School. I would just like to talk briefly about the online health program over the summer. I took the program this year, and I have a lot of comments about it. First thing I'd like to say is some positive stuff. I liked how you can move at your own pace with the program. And though if you were slacking off a bit, you would get a very passive-aggressive email from Ms. Marcuson. But I did like that you had the freedom of moving about as your own will. Like, I had a very busy summer, but I did manage to find time to work on it, and I liked that I could work whenever I could, even if it did mean pulling an all-nighter. But there were a lot of issues with the program that I noticed, mostly with the content, and I feel that we should talk to MVP about fixing the course a little bit. One thing to note is that this course was created in 2008 and has not been updated since. And since it is a health program, there are a lot of things in the world of health that change throughout the course of 9 years. So one thing, or not 9, or I'm not really sure, I'm sorry, it's late. One thing to note, one thing that really came out to me was government. So they talked a lot about government and how they affect health, and one thing was food stamps and a lot of stuff about how government-run food programs work. Now, again, this was created in 2008. This was before Michelle Obama's actions on reducing the amount of sodium that's in foods at high schools and also middle schools. So I feel that the course really needs to be revised as to the current issues where government stands on how food is served in school cafeterias. Another thing is sexual orientation and gender identity. The course did not really do a great job of recognizing the LGBTQ plus community, especially since, again, this was created in 2008. There are a lot of advances in the community that happened very recently, including the legalization of same-sex marriage in all states, so I feel that the course should really be revised to all of the current health standards. Again, though, it was a great course. I would recommend it to my fellow classmates because it's a great way to get ahead and also get some more free slots in your upcoming school year, but I do think that we should heavily encourage MVP to update their course. Thank you.
Thank you, Max. Very good comments. We appreciate them.
Does the course that's given in the school, is that updated?
First, who are you? Sorry, we know you.
Oh, Ruth Jenkin, I'm sorry. The health course that's given in person, is that current and updated, or is that also out of date?
Yes, it has been updated as recently as last summer, and with our own policy changes and new resources.
That's good, see? How much is summer school? How much is the online? What is the cost?
The face-to-face course is around $950, and the MVP course is $425.
And is there any scholarship or funding for students who can't afford?
Yes, we offer, we support students regardless of whether it's traditional or online with, we fully fund students that are on free and reduced lunch.
And so they have to be eligible for free lunch in order to get some support? Because
Free
there
or
are,
reduced.
yeah, I know that that's usually the bar, but there are many students who don't get free lunch who also could use the support, especially if there's more than one child in a family that may be taking a course. The other question I just wanted to ask was about the grading and kind of referencing what Ben was talking about, that when a student is, before they get to the final grade and the grade that is going to go on their transcript and all the other things that you were talking about, how do they get to that final grade? If a student has theoretically a year of difficulty and does poorly in the first and second marking term, but somehow pulls together, gets themselves together, and excels in the third and fourth, does everything get averaged in, or do they get credit for improvement or for recovery in some way?
So the course, there's a formula for figuring out your final grade. Each quarter is worth 20% of your final grade. Final exam is worth 11%. The midterm exam is worth 9%. However, there is a floor that we have for the first semester. So the first half of a course, if a student does, the floor is 50% of the course. So if I happen to get a 30% the first quarter, that's raised to a 50%. So while it certainly affects you, it doesn't affect you as badly.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Gina Trignani. I live in Bryn Mawr, Pennsylvania. I have a 9-year-old son that is at Gladwin Elementary School. I'm just here to speak my part in support of our faculty across the district. I'm certainly concerned about the faculty working without a contract since June, well, the end of June. And the having to work under the conditions of not knowing whether or not they're going to get a fair contract. I'm just really encouraging with all that the faculty do, that I've seen the faculty do for my son. I'm incredibly amazed at the amount of effort and dedication that the teachers have. I know it's kind of an expectation, but I really do believe they go as a whole above and beyond. I've seen from everywhere, from the principals down to the custodial staff, support the children. It's just really amazing what they do at the school district. I haven't had the opportunity to see the high school or the middle school yet, and look forward to that. So I'm just encouraging all of you. I know it's challenging, but we really do need to give our teachers a fair contract, and as soon as possible, so we can get beyond this point. I know you probably would love to get beyond the point of this deliberation. And I just want to say, I didn't have the opportunity to go to such a wonderful school district like Laura Marion School District, and to see what the teachers have done for my son. I just really feel like my son wouldn't be where he is right now with the support that he's had it not been for his third grade teacher having the skill and the willingness to really go above and beyond. She really didn't have to do what she did for our son, and I really feel like it is our school district that supports the faculty. So I really want to see them, continue to have that kind of support and want to do the best for our children. We live in one of the best school districts. People want to come and live here. And, we want to stay competitive. So we need to really support our faculty and make sure that they have a fair contract moving forward. Thank you.
Sam?
Yep, sorry. Hello, I'm Sam Catania. I'm a 10th grade student at Harriton High School. I'd just like to talk a little bit about my experience with online health this summer, as it was a little bit of a hot topic tonight. Personally, I would have to say, and as the survey showed, I would have to say my overall thoughts were that, yes, it was good, yes, it did its job, and yes, I enjoyed it because I got credit and thus could take another class, journalism in this case, that I wouldn't have been able to take before. But that overall recommendation doesn't necessarily reflect how I feel in terms of the finer details about the course. It was definitely convenient and easy to use. I could do it from anywhere. I was up in New Hampshire a lot of the summer, so that was really great. But at the same time, as Max said, it wasn't very up-to-date, and it was also not very engaging. A lot of the videos were very low quality. They, just the whole system of the website, it wasn't very engaging. It definitely didn't compare to an experience of having an actual teacher in an actual classroom, and I think that's definitely something the district should consider when making more incentives for students to participate in actual, going to a building summer school. That wasn't an option for me, and I was very thankful for the ability to do online school, but I think there should definitely be much more incentive to go to a building, as that will provide a better education. I was a little bit of a special case with online health. I actually did it in 5 days. I did it in about, I think the record said 53 hours, not 118. So I don't know if that's just some extreme cramming and some extreme luck, but I think that the course doesn't take 118 hours, and I think those statistics are complete and utter lies. On the tests, it says this test, you have 2 hours to complete a 20 multiple choice question test, and if they're getting the times from that, well, that's really inaccurate, because those 20 multiple choice question tests take about 5.5 minutes, probably less in some cases, and that doesn't reflect 118 hours of work by any stretch of the imagination. So the district should definitely consider that even if it meets all the curriculum standards, it might not necessarily be on par with the experience you're going to be getting in an actual classroom in terms of projects. Another thing I noticed, I could slack off and watch YouTube videos during the videos and still pretty much learn the entire thing. You could search Google for the answers to the questions with no penalties whatsoever, and obviously that's not necessarily academic integrity, but for someone, and I know a lot of students do this, for someone trying to get the course done so that they didn't have to take the class the next year, that was an option that they took. Additionally, for a lot of the free response questions, literally copying and pasting the question into the answer box yielded a correct answer, so apparently the keywords weren't very good either, and no humans were even spot checking those, it seemed. In terms of the support, I did get one email from Andy Dill, the glorious teacher of online health. He was very supportive in my 5 days, and I'm sure if I had any questions, he would have been supportive, so that was good. I didn't need to utilize that. But, that's just my thoughts, and I think, you should consider looking into these courses and maybe taking out the middlemen, and finding a really great curriculum when considering future online courses. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ben.
Good evening. My name is Ben Feldman. I'm a senior at Harridan High School. I thought I'd give my opinions for the benefit of the group on the discussion on valedictorian, salutatorian. I think that perhaps change should be implemented soon. I think that it's a system that's been in place for a number of years for good reason, but that it should be changed because there are flaws with it. Primarily, I see it as a bit of a system that fosters competitiveness in an unnecessary way, not just among students, but internally, such that it feels like grades carry more weight than they do. For example, I've never taken a CP class. It's always been honors, AP, or IB, and I think I'm out of the running for valedictorian because I got a 91 sophomore year taking AP Stat. And that's the lowest grade I've ever gotten, but there are peers who have a better understanding of how the valedictorian system works, where in a preliminary discussion on who possible valedictorians in our class could be, when I said I got a 91, they said, well, that takes you out of the running. I haven't challenged that, but I think it creates a bit of a system whereby the actual work done isn't reflected in who's chosen. That's not to say that the person chosen isn't extremely qualified. It, of course, takes tremendous effort to do so. But the other thing I'd like to address is that I think perhaps the act of speaking publicly to a large audience isn't the exact same skill set required to get a 5.0 GPA or something very close to that. I think that there are, this is the first time actually in this meeting that somebody has said those chosen for valedictorian or salutatorian don't want to speak. I've always been under the impression that anyone who's given the chance would want to speak. Perhaps that's just because that's my MO and I'm more inclined to speak at meetings like this or at the Lower Merion Teachers Convocation in August or whatever it is. So I think it's a great opportunity to speak publicly, but I think there are some who wouldn't. I'd like the board to explore options of allowing for an option for students to, or for a committee to choose a speaker and have other ways to commend students who have the highest GPA, perhaps in another way, in a ceremony that doesn't require them speaking, or if it does, more optional speaking, such that it's not expected that the student with the highest GPA speaks at graduation. I hope my thoughts are helpful to the board. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for the public comment, especially for our students. We appreciate your feedback and we'll certainly take it all under consideration. And so if there's nothing further, with that, we're adjourned. Thank you.